So I gave the this is hilarious. So since I didn't meet anyone that I thought was nice on other websites, the basic dating sites, I decided to try a fetish dating site. Uh, and I put some information on there. It's not necessarily me, hard to find me based on the information, but I thought I'd try it out and see what I could find on there with the information that I gave. And it's just crazy. So this one guy I was talking to, I thought he really could have been a nice guy that I could have went out with, but the more we kept talking, this is something I've seen a lot with Asian men from certain countries. And then we were talking because he was like, he went on vacation to Hong Kong and he got a massage. Okay, that just sounds like you saw a prostitute. And then he's like, oh, he had a happy ending and he saw nothing wrong with that. I'm like, you saw a prostitute. If you did that in the US and there was a raid, you'd go to jail, and so with the prostitute. And you'd have that on your record as frequenting prostitutes. And then we were talking because he was like, oh, he doesn't like to wear condoms. And it's just like, I'm going along with this stuff. And then it's like, oh, he's saying all this. So I'm getting the impression he's an independent, stable man. And then I asked him, does he live alone? And he's like, no, I live with roommates. Okay. That's always a red flag, especially if it's an Asian man or a Latino man and he says he lives with roommates. Because you know what roommates is code for? I live with my parents. And this man was 38 years old. He's like, I live with my parents and everything. And I'm just like, okay. And then we're talking, so we were talking off and on throughout the day. He seemed cool, but then the more we start talking towards the end of the day, it's like, okay, this man is batshit crazy. So then I give it another chance because I'm thinking, like, maybe I'm judging and I don't understand something. Maybe we need to talk because sometimes you can text and then you misunderstand stuff. But it's like, nope, I didn't misunderstand stuff. That was the better side of him. So we talk and I explain to him, like, if because like in the US, you might get put in jail for a little bit and have to make bond or whatever. And it goes on your record with seeing the prostitutes. He saw nothing wrong with it. He said it wasn't done in his country, so there's nothing wrong with it. But that makes it even worse. You went to another country to see the prostitute who was probably a sex slave and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, they did it without his permission. It's like, if you go to a massage place, they have you lay on your back. It's like, yeah, that doesn't sound right. Because a massage place would never ask a woman to lay on her back because yeah, you can't massage a woman in the front because that would be wrong. So it's like you're not going to massage a man in the front either because where are you going to massage him? He has a penis and then he has nipples. So it's like, yeah, no, something's going to happen. Something's going to rise. He's like, they had me turned over. And then the next thing I know, they're touching me. He's saying, and I'm like, oh, so you're saying they sexually assaulted you? And I was like, maybe you should get therapy if they sexually assaulted you to have someone to talk to. And he's like, no. And then I'm talking to him more and he's like, he's at Starbucks. And I'm like, oh, why don't you make your coffee at home? Because this is before I realized he lives with his parents. And he's like, oh, I can't make it at home as good or whatever. It's like, try. You're 38 years old and you have roommates. So I'm like, you should try to make it at home. And then I talked to him because he's like, oh, he can't take public transit to work to commute because he's like, he's stuck in traffic and it's taking him a while. And then he's like, no, it'll take me 3 hours. I'm like, nope, you don't live that far away. There's 2 different modes of transportation plus buses where you live to take you to where you're going to work. And it's like, why do you work so far away and you work in the big city where people go to work? It's like, what's wrong where you can't get a job where you live and where it pays more? Because from the region, people come all around to your city for a job, but you can't get a job in that city. And then you speak one of the main languages where you could work either speaking English or your native language, but he's going like an hour away. Makes no sense. And then I asked him more about the coffee, and then I'm like, "How much do you spend on the coffee? Are you saving up to move or something?" And he's like, "Oh, it's too expensive and everything." And I'm like, "How much does your, Starbucks cost?" 'Cause I'm like, "Oh, for a cup of coffee, you probably for a small one, you probably spent at least $6, if not more." And I'm like, "How much did you spend?" And he's like, "Oh, I spent 20." And then yeah, and then that's pretty much where the call ended, but before that, we were talking, and I was suggesting therapy because he's saying he was basically forced into the massage parlor, and it's like, okay, if you were in another country, because I was like, in a lot of countries in Asia, and you went to them and you did that, you'd probably be put to death. Because I'm like, if you went to Pakistan, possibility you could be put to death or locked up for life. Possibly in Indonesia, put to death. And I'm like, in Afghanistan, you'd be put to death. Basically, anywhere west of India, you could possibly put to death for doing what you did in Hong Kong. And he's like, it was legal there and everything. It's like, yeah, I mean, these people might have been sex trafficked, who knows what. And you're just adding to their trauma, but you're like, oh no. And you're like, they did this to you. And it's like, yeah, you should know better. And it's like, he was naive. He didn't know better. And I suggested he talk to a therapist and get a psychological evaluation. Because the more I talked to him, he just seemed fucking crazy. Like he didn't know better. And it's like, okay, you're 38 years old. You should know better. And basically, you were a sex tourist. You might not have had sex, but you had sexual activities performed on you and you went to a foreign country. So I would consider you to be a sex tourist. And he didn't see anything wrong with that. And then I started asking him about Thailand, if he ever planned on going to Thailand. And he seemed to know what I was talking about when I was talking about Thailand. Where I was going with to see if he would go to Thailand to sleep with people. Because he was like, he wanted to be in a relationship with me. And he wanted to date me. And it was like, oh, hi. And he was like, oh, if we got together and stuff and we ever got in a relationship and decided to take it to the next level, he was like, he doesn't like condoms. And I'm just like, okay, all this stuff saying you're financially irresponsible and everything. And then he like fell for like the oldest scam in the book that's pulled on Asian men a lot, where Asian men tend to fall for it and they don't ask questions. But other men, they'll ask a little bit of questions and they'll ask for a DNA test. So he's like, oh, I have a child. I haven't seen them. The mother doesn't want me involved. And he's like, oh, the kid kind of looks like you. And I'm like, okay. It's like, have you seen the kid? Did you do a DNA test? He's like, no. And I'm like, the kid kind of looks like you. Okay, what does the kid look like? And I'm like, is the kid 100% Asian? He's like, yeah. It's like, how is there anything where it makes the kid look like you specifically? Because anybody could pull a picture of an Asian kid off the internet and say, hey, that's your kid. And I've heard plenty of Asian men where they're like, oh, they have a kid, but they've never seen the kid or heard the kid. They just saw a picture or they've never even seen a picture. And I'm just talking to this guy and I'm just like, as this conversation goes on, this guy, he didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with the sex tourism. And I'm like, does it bother you that I have an issue with you and your sex tourism and all this stuff? That I have an issue with it? And he's like, oh, it doesn't bother me that you have an issue with it. And I'm like, okay, I would think you would. I don't know. It was just strange. He didn't seem to know any better. And he didn't seem to have any common sense, because I suggested that he'd see a therapist, but a therapist outside of San Francisco or the South Bay or the peninsula. And I suggested a white man or a black man to evaluate his mental status, because if he went to like the South Bay Peninsula or San Francisco and evaluate it, and he got evaluated by somebody there, they would be like, oh, he's just a typical Asian man. And it's like, you go to the North Bay, you go to the to the North Bay or to the East Bay, more like to the Richmond area or somewhere where there's less of an Asian population, so where people don't have that to relate to. And people would be like, okay, this man is severely ill. He is severely mentally ill or something's wrong with him. Because it's like, he can't afford to move out. And I'm like, do you know what a failure to launch is? A failure to thrive? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's you. And it was just like awkward. But that was another bullet dodged. It was like, I tried other dating sites and it's like weird people I don't like. Then I thought, on the fetish site, what might I find? And I just found a bunch of weird people. Oh, and then there were these other guys, they're like saying they're like near my age. And I'm like, no, you have a full head of hair, gray hair, and wrinkles. You look about 70. And one guy, he's like, oh, he's only a few years older than me. And I'm like, yeah, no, you look older than my grandfather. But I'm going to assume because my grandfather looks young for his age. So I'm going to assume this guy might be in his 70s. But my grandfather, I know he's well over 70. But my grandfather could pass for early 70s. Late 60s to mid 70s my grandfather could pass for, even though he's way older than that because he just looks young for his age. And then he's also very active. And these guys were like, no. And then like people from like all over were trying to contact me and stuff, and it's just like weird. But he was the first guy that I talked to on the phone from this site, and it's like, this guy is a train wreck. And then we were talking, and then he's like, oh, I have to go. And then he just hung up on me. Yeah. But that's my exploration in the fetish dating site. And we'll see how it goes. If you like, watch and subscribe. Bye.